We now start our third set of decision-making slides. In the first two, we covered the rational comprehensive model of decision-making, and then two other models that build from there, bounded rationality and incrementalism. We turn to dysfunctional decision-making models in this slide set. So the overview, again, we talked about rational choice, bounded rationality, and incrementalism. We're going to move into two other types, groupthink and a garbage can model. Groupthink is prioritizing group cohesion and unanimity over critical analysis, right? And so we prioritize this kind of notion of consensus or unanimous approval of a decision more than we actually do the decision, right? And we have these kind of symptoms of collective rationalization, self-censorship, people not speaking up when they disagree with others, suppression of dissent, right? Those who may be speaking up, their ideas are kind of quashed. There's some strategies to avoid this. One is kind of open dialogue, encouraging dissent, kind of a devil's advocate role in a situation where you're making decisions like this. Anonymous feedback, smaller groups, rotating leadership. The one thing that we need to have when we're trying to make decisions is diverse perspectives, different ideas, critical thinking, right? Where folks aren't just following in line, but are actually capable of expressing their beliefs, opinions, to kind of take us out of this approach of groupthink. So, Bay of Pigs invasion, 1961, President Kennedy, invasion of Cuba, overvalued consensus and ignored dissent. This kind of took us in the Cold War almost to the brink of nuclear conflict with Russia. It was a huge mistake. It was a critical failure. They did not understand the risks. They didn't pay attention to the operation planning. But everybody wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to speak up and say, hey, this isn't a good idea. That is the classic model of groupthink. The next one is decision making by anarchy, or the garbage can model of decision making. And this idea is that there are problems, solutions, people, choices. They're kind of floating around independently, and they occasionally align. This comes from three theorists, Cohen, March, and Olson, and it kind of reflects high uncertainty, reflects organizations that don't have strict hierarchies. They are loosely coupled organizations. Maybe a matrix organization, maybe it's a small organization. Definitely not a machine bureaucracy type of organization here. So the thing here is that similarly to how we discussed the notion of the social construction of problems, the social construction of solutions, the idea here is that there are problems that are kind of out there, right? There are solutions that are just kind of out there. There are places where people need to decide to do things, to make choices. And there are issues that we need to solve. When these things converge, when someone says, here is an issue, this looks like a solution to it, this is the problem defined, right? And we need to decide on something, so let's do it. Right? Let's just pull this one out of the garbage can and say, hey, I think it's going to fit. I think it's going to work. Right? So you have these independent streams. This graphic kind of stinks, but that's what I did. And there's this problem stream, this solution stream, the people stream, kind of fluid in and out participants, and the choices idea. Right? When these things converge in a garbage can, that's how the example is here, a decision emerges. So the way that I like to explain this is think about kind of a term paper that you have due for a particular class. And it is due tomorrow, and you have barely started on working on it, right? And so you sit down and you start typing it out and trying to get some words on the paper. And, you've been at it for a couple hours. It's not that great. You've got some text there. And then your friend stops over or calls you up and says, hey, let's go out. And you're like, I know, I got this huge term paper to do. And anyway, so they convince you to go out. And you're like, well, this paper's crap. It's not going to be good. I'm going to be up all night finishing this thing. And then you go out and you get back in too late. and you go to sleep, and you wake up the next morning and that paper is due, and you've done nothing other than the kind of crappy job you did for the first time. So what do? You have this issue, right, as class, a paper that you have due for it. You have this kind of participants. You were in the decision-making model of working on it, and then another person comes in and says, hey, let's do this, and gets you out of your process of coming up with the appropriate time spent on your paper. And then now you have to decide, what are you going to do? Do you take an F, or do you turn something in? That thing that you just kind of half-assed wrote already, right? So maybe you got, 6 of the 12 pages or something like that. And so the choice here in this garbage can decision-making model is that you would take this crappy paper right out of the trash and turn it in for your assignment, right? And just hope it works. And that's the idea here, right? Is you are coming up with you have this issue, you have this problem, and here's the solution, right? And you're going to stick them together and say, let's hope it works. So here's an example again of this. A situation where the problem is the university departments need more funding, solutions, fundraising strategies. You have these people, the participants, and you have the choices, right? Budget meetings whenever they're scheduled. And these things are kind of occurring independently. The problems are occurring independently. The activities around fundraising is occurring independently. The participants are kind of coming and going. Students come and go all the time, right? Faculty and administrators certainly come and go. And then the choice is when do you bring it up? When do you have this moment to connect the problem and the solution, right? And then so at some budget meeting, someone says, hey, let's use this fundraising dollars to fill in these gaps. It might not be the best solution. Might have been a totally different way to do it. But they were the ideas that at the moment presented themselves, and someone said, let's try it, see what happens. I think this is how a lot of public policy problems are solved, right? We just say, all right, let's see if this works, and then go with it, right? And this is totally against the notion of bounded rationality, totally against the approaches that we would have taken in a rational comprehensive approach, right, where you are really working through the process to come up with the optimal solution, right, or at least the most satisfying solution or satisfactory solution from a bounded approach, or just even a small change, right? But here you are, this is why it's called decision making by anarchy, right? Is there's no kind of real organization to it. You're just throwing things together and say, all right, let's see what happens. So here's a kind of comparison table based on the information, the process, and then the outcome. Rational choice, the outcome is the best solution. Bounded rationality, good enough. Incrementalism, just a small change so we don't mess things up too much. Groupthink is going to lead to poor decisions. And a garbage can is going to lead to unpredictable outcome, right? We don't know if the solution is going to actually work to solve the problem. So toolkit. Rational analysis, when the information is good. Clear problem, clear data. You can take the time to analyze it. Satisficing, when time is short. So you're just going to have limited set of data, limited set of information, limited time, and you're going to do something. Hopefully that it's somewhat close to rational. Incrementalism, when you have high risk, right? When radical change is risky or politically infeasible. Groupthink, you kind of build in dissent to your decision-making approach when everybody's kind of overvaluing harmony. So when people are trying to get along more than actually solve a problem, you say, all right, we have this kind of groupthink going on, so we need to work in ways to bring in alternative ideas. And then opportunity recognition is the garbage can. When the streams align, when you can say, hey, we have this thing, here's the solution that may work for it, let's try it. Last thought, the idea here is that there's no perfect model, right? But it's knowing which one to use in a given situation when it comes to deciding what best to do about a public policy problem. That's it for decision making. I'll see you next time.